Hey everyone, it's Sonia here. I know that you would like me to come here and tell you some good news, but unfortunately today I don't have any. I've been looking into the whole situation with digital ID, specifically in Quebec, and it doesn't look good. If you think it's been bad until now, it's going to get worse, I'm pretty sure. I think that Canada is one of the main testing grounds for Social Credit System 2.0, and Quebec is the testing ground for the testing ground. So I'm going to give you the rundown on that, and you let me know what you think. Let me know whether you think that they're going to get this done on schedule. Because, I mean, if we can't avoid it at all, I'm sort of hoping that maybe we can buy some time, or maybe it'll get delayed. But I don't know if we're going to be that lucky. Anyhow, if you like the video, thanks for hitting like. Thank you for your support on Patreon. That helps keep my channel going. And thanks for checking out the link below for C60 EVO. You guys, I told you last time, and it still applies. I'm kind of ruined. My sleep quality has been really bad since I ran out of my C60. That stuff gives me really good, deep, restorative sleep. And now that I've run out, well, I've gone back to being tired all the time. So I'm hoping to get more very, very soon, and hopefully then I'll feel a lot better. But if you're interested, please check out the link below for more info and a discount, and my testimonial is also on there. So let's look into this. Digital identity for every Quebecer, the biggest IT project in history. Okay, this was from June 17, 2020, and they said, the government wants to become the guardian of the confidential data of all Quebecers by providing each citizen with their own digital identity. The ambitious project will cost billions of dollars and has never been done anywhere else in the world. We're going to be the first. And it's going to be that social credit 2.0. By 2025, every citizen should have a digital key that will give them access to all state services and even to private services such as banks. Funny how the financial thing ties into it. A year before, in 2019, July, data protection, Quebec lagging behind. So here they're talking basically about how our data protection isn't where it should be. There's always the issue of, identity theft, hacking, and all these kind of things. And they mentioned that from the end of the 1990s and the beginning of the 2000s, Ottawa was studying the possibility of providing Canadians with a digital identity card. And here it is. It's this report, SIM report of the committee. They were studying the feasibility, the cost, and also ethical implications of a digital identity system. It is kind of weird to talk about, needing a new national identity card, because actually we already do have these sort of citizenship cards. So I don't know why they couldn't just use that. But the fact was that this wasn't just going to be any old ID card. They were planning to use biometrics from the beginning. A unique identifier, fingerprints or retina scans, would be preferable to a less reliable identifier. This goes way back, you guys. Other preliminary examination in Canada. During the 1990s, the House of Commons Standing Committee on Human Resources Development considered a proposal to replace the social insurance number with the national identity card. This proposal was rejected by the government due to privacy concerns and projected cost. The 1999 document also said a national identification system would raise significant privacy concerns. So back then, as far back as the 90s and up till 1999, it was like, no, this is, it's invasive, it's breaching your privacy, it's risky. But I guess we've come a long way since then. And look at this, at the top of the document, they bring up something that, well, we all kind of knew that this had a lot to do with, the direction things were going in. National security concerns following the 11th of September events may well be a factor behind this issue. Interesting. What a catalyst that was for so many things, for so many changes in our world. But the national identity card could also be useful in other ways. For example, to facilitate travel and trade. Wait, travel? Why? We already have a passport. It's like they knew. And for the fight against identity theft. So here we are now. This was also from 2019. It was actually just 6 months after this article where they said how our data protection was lagging. 6 months later, poof, they have the solution, apparently. A digital identity for Quebecers by 2021. So this is in 2019, which is weird because they didn't have infrastructure in place. But they were saying your driver's license and your health insurance card could soon be just old memories. Radio-Canada has learned that the government of Quebec wants to create a digital identity for its citizens by 2021. From then on, a host of public services would be accessible from your smartphone. So at the time, if you're kind of wondering, well, how many people were using smartphones, can you really make it the mandatory digital wallet? Well, I guess they figured that more or less you could because most people actually have one. So this was from 2018, 88.1%. So all of a sudden in 2019, they're telling us digital identity for Quebecers by 2021. But do we have a digital identity? We haven't received any new documents. Our passport is still paper. I still have my Medicare and my driver's license. Well, what do we have? We don't. Oh, wait. No, we do have one thing. Actually, yes. Let's not forget the vaccine passport. There's your infrastructure. I mean, really, 2019, digital identity for Quebecers in 2021. 2021? Well, we don't have digital ID, but we certainly have the infrastructure with that vaccine passport. How unbelievably convenient. There was like a silver lining to the pandemic. It brought us into the future. We're so much more secure now. Good thing for the vaccine passport. Back to this data protection lagging behind. They said the purpose of a digital identity is to provide citizens with a single piece of identity. Card, virtual account, secured according to computer protocols, allowing them to prove their identity each time without having to provide personal data. So again, all along, the goal has been one app. Now look, I feel like a broken record. I've said this so many times. I guess I keep repeating it because I think it's really that important. I want to make sure everybody knows. These apps to begin with were financial platforms, and then they could have like add-ons. So, I mean, VCode already way back in the day, they were saying that they could host everything. Your passport, your medical information, vaccine status, your financial stuff, bank access, whatever, event tickets, you name it. They say one code, infinite possibilities. And they're not kidding. It really is. So even before our vaccine passport, even before we had all the stuff in place, the purpose was already to have like one-stop shopping on your phone for all your ID. So here we are in 2022, biggest IT project in history. Funny, eh? That it would be Quebec. Like I said, we're like the testing ground of the testing ground. I always think this traces back to those original surveys way back in the beginning of the pandemic when they asked Canadians, would you be willing to take a COVID vaccine? And we had the highest rate of yes answers. They said 80% of Quebecers said yes, right off the bat. Like yes, immediately, or yes, probably, but like after a little time. But most people were very much on board. So I guess they figured it was a good place to start because that passport was gonna, like I said again, like I said before and said many times, the passport brings the infrastructure. It gives it this big push. So because we were so willing to get the vaccine over here, meaning we could also get the passport. Remember, we were the first place that had the passport. And we are going to be the first ones that have this mandatory digital ID. But there's more. Look at what this entails. If the project is a success, the digital identity will allow every Quebecer to access their driver's license, their tax records, and their bank accounts without having to remember countless passwords and carry dozens of identity cards. Now, look, I get it. I get that selling point. I really do. That's definitely a plus, not to have to remember your zillions of passwords. I actually hate having to remember passwords. It stresses me out. I do worry about getting hacked. It's happened before. I don't mind carrying cards. That's not a problem. But remembering all those passwords, sure, that's a selling point, not having to do that. The digital identity will be based on blockchain, a technology deemed inviolable. This new project, the Quebec Digital Identity Service, will be deployed over 5 years if all goes as planned. To date, there's no blockchain-based digital identity solution. We will be the first company in the world, said the minister. Nothing will belong to a private company, he assures us. Mr. Kerr points out there could be partnerships with Desjardins, for example, but control would remain under state jurisdiction. It's the government. The goal is for the Quebec government to be the service provider. He uses the data of which he is the guardian in order to provide the identity certificates he promises. The government uses the data of which he is the guardian. So this means that the government has 100% control. They will have all your data for all domains. They will have the key. The government wants to become the guardian of the confidential data. Every citizen should have access to a digital key, but the government will have access to it as well since they're the guardian. So that's an enormous amount of control for the government to have. And remember those old commission reports where they wanted to use biometrics, but they decided that there were too many privacy concerns and it was too invasive? Well, things have changed. This digital ID that we're going to have here in Quebec, they're telling us now it's going to include biometric. The Legault government wants to provide Quebecers with the digital identity by June. Okay, so that was last year. So we didn't get all the digital identity, but we did get the vaccine passport, as I said. Eventually, we will even speak of a biometric identification of the individual by fingerprint, facial recognition, or imaging of the iris of the eye, for example. So this is what we're getting. This is going to be absolutely airtight. Total control. So your digital wallet is going to give you access to things, but it can also block access. Like, for example, in the last 6 months when they used the vaccination passport, it was still possible for people to get into places without it if the owner of the restaurant let them in. And this did happen because it was kind of an honor system, although they did send in spies to bust restaurateurs who were not being honest about it, who were letting people in who shouldn't be in there. But that was about all the government could do, was send in some agents. But once everything is on your digital wallet and the government holds the key and they have that much control, then if they decide that you can't go in somewhere, they can just make it so that your banking platform won't work in there. So if somebody lets you in the restaurant, well, then you won't be able to pay. Lots and lots of control. And as I was reading about this, it reminded me of another document that I'd seen, which I've shown you all before as well. So this is Gavi. You all know who that is. I don't have to explain. And this is their Infuse program. Innovation for uptake, scale, and equity in immunization. Infuse helps improve vaccine delivery system by connecting high-impact proven innovations with the countries that need them the most. They actually have quite a few interesting initiatives, but I won't get into that today. But here was something from Infuse from 2018. They said, imagine a future in which all children have access to life-saving vaccines no matter where they live, a future in which parents and health workers ensure their timely vaccination, a future in which they have their own digitally stored health record that cannot be lost or stolen, a future in which, regardless of gender, economic, or social standing, this record allows each child and parents to have access to a bank account, go to school, access services, and ultimately build a prosperous life. So at the time when I first saw this, my reaction was, well, why would you need a vaccination record to be able to go to school or access services and build a prosperous life? Does it give you some kind of privileges? So, and this is way back in 2018. It's that connection between the sort of vaccine passport and your access to other things. So as I see what they're doing now with this digital wallet, in conjunction with our experience that we've had with this, it does remind me a lot of these kind of ideas that came from Gavi through Infuse, of your vaccination record somehow giving you access to things. But the question is, if you don't have that record, does that mean that you're barred access? Gotta ask the questions. And if our government is holding the keys and they're controlling it and they're pulling all the strings, can they just bar access then if you don't do something that they want you to do?
Hello everyone, meet Lucy, student in psychology, and me, her digital ID wallet issued by the government to offer a wide range of identity services. I can help governments to better communicate with citizens. Right now, I'm reminding Lucy of the appointment she needs to schedule for her mandatory vaccination.
So, without saying too much and getting my entire channel taken down, let's just say that this identity project for Quebec is going to, it's tighten things up even more. I mean, if you thought they had a lot of control last year, or like in the last 6 months, wait till you see how it's going to be once they've got this thing going. So yeah, it looks like Quebec is really the testing ground for this, and this is absolute control, total control. And you know what? In some ways, some of this stuff could be a good thing. I mean, we don't like identity theft. We don't really like having all these passwords. It would be convenient to have your stuff on a phone. There's nothing inherently wrong with any of this. The problem is just whose hands it's in. If it's in the hands of honest, ethical people who are serving the public, then I think it could be fine. It's just more technological progress. But in the hands of the wrong people, it could be quite a disaster. So I wanted to give you an update, and bottom line, if you think that you're not going to be on board with any of this and you have the opportunity to get out of here, I would say now would be the time. Because if not, this is like a kind of dragnet, like a net that's being cast. And once you're in it, you can't go out. And what I would foresee would be that this would be tightened up so completely that at a certain point, if you didn't have access to this, you wouldn't be able to work, you wouldn't be able to pay anything, you wouldn't be able to, house yourself or feed yourself. And I even would think that, our government having to be sort of humanitarian, they wouldn't be able to let people just sort of die in the streets and starve and not allow them into shelters and just sort of die in the street. Although, well, they did do some of that during the lockdowns. But in general, wanting to be a country that respects human rights, I would guess that they might actually give people an alternative. Like, look, you can do all this stuff, get your ID and use it. And if you don't, and once you're disenfranchised, the government will provide some kind of housing for you. But I'm going to guess it's not going to be very nice. And you're not going to have a whole lot of freedom in there. But it would be sort of like a last step before you, I guess, I don't know, just die in the street like the dirty dog that you are. You guys know what I'm saying? I don't think that they would take people who refuse and say, okay, well, we're going to intern you. But I would suspect that they might provide a solution for them, that those people would just end up being like, yeah, well, we have nowhere else to go. So there's that. Anyhow, let me know what you think. And thanks again for liking the video. Thank you for your support on Patreon. Appreciate it. And thanks for checking out the link for C60 EVO, which gives me my improved sleep, which I'm hoping to get back soon. And thanks for listening to me, and I'll see you next time.